Hey, happy March. Oh no, okay. Oh my, I haven't done a live stream for a while. So I'm not sure about this, but here we go. I got my Virgo cup. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's raining here as it has been for ever it feels. But happy March. I am so glad it's March because even though in February, some of the people I love most in the world, including one of my children, are born in February. February just is like my least favorite month out of the year. I don't know where you live in the world, but where I live in the world and where all the places I've lived, it's always cold and winter's not quite over. It's that second half of winter where you're like done, or I'm done anyway, and I want the sun. Sorry, I'm squirming around in my chair. So I'm very, very happy to have March here. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the title of this trigger warning. And so I didn't put why it was triggering. Because I'm just going to talk about triggers and hopefully not trigger anybody, but the advice that I'm giving is definitely not really for someone who has experienced major trauma, because if you have experienced major trauma, then certain things that may trigger you might need professional assistance to deal with. And even people who haven't had major trauma, hey Eric, but just life trauma might need assistance to deal with it. But I want to talk to those of us who've had like normal life trauma and who get triggered by things that happen. So with that kind of situation, my daughter, who's 19, recently told me that I triggered her, and I said, "You're welcome." And that's kind of what I want you to think of when someone triggers you, be it like someone in your immediate environment, a family member, a coworker, a friend, someone in politics, right? The people in politics, they're just there to trigger us, right? I understand that Stacy's saying she gets triggered even with people breathing sometimes. Like my husband, as much as I love him, sometimes like the sounds that he makes when he's eating, if he's like eating in bed or like drinking coffee, I'm like, right? But all these things that trigger us, they wouldn't trigger us unless there's a trigger point there for us. So I like to look at that as it's a gift from that person. They may not think they're giving you a gift, but they are, because they're letting you know that there's something there that is pushing that button inside of you. Hey Janice, oh, I bet it is cold and snowy up there. It's supposed to get to 20 degrees here again in a few days down here in South Carolina. And I'm like, no, I'm so ready for the warm weather to come. I'm so ready for spring, and I'm like wanting to plant flowers, and they'll freeze. So I'm like just sitting here going, please, please, please. Anyway, Stacey, I totally get you though. Everything builds up and you snap. So I can give you a practice to work with that. And I mean, we're all human. We're all going to snap. We're all going to get triggered by certain things. But I like to change this, change the perception of how we react when someone triggers us. And this is like a practice, right? Because sometimes people trigger us and we just get pissed. For lack of a better word, we just get pissed, and that's fine. But when we can try to build up awareness, like even in the moment or even later, like, hey, I wonder what that was about. I wonder why that triggered me. Like this person did something and it just got under my skin. Yeah, we all have anger, and I think it's like how we process it that really makes a difference. So what I like to do when somebody triggers me, it's like an exercise that I teach people all the time. It's very simple, but it's not easy. It's definitely a practice. And that is just like the feeling of your feelings at the time without the story about what triggered you and what made you mad. And if you practice doing this every day, you can get really good at doing it in the moment when you're talking with someone even, or they're in the room. But usually when you first start doing it, you have to do it by yourself. And so like if you're triggered at work, you can go off to the work restroom and just breathe. But what I like to do is practice doing it every day before I'm triggered and just take that quiet minute. I do this every morning before I get out of bed, just to like feel in and feel what my energy and emotions are around the day. Because sometimes you're already worried about like what you're going to have to deal with and where you've got to go and what time you have to pick up your kids or be at work. So if you can take a moment and just like feel the energy in your body. And then once you're triggered, you can do this too, but it's easier to get in that practice of feeling it in the moment. So you just want to take a few breaths, and you only have to do this for a minute or two, but sometimes you'll do it longer, but it's really just to feel that energy and let it shift. So like all emotion is energy going through our body. And so anger is just a different energy, and guilt and shame, they're all just, thoughts going through our body, creating a different level of vibration. So when you can feel that vibration and not resist it and be okay with it, it's healing. And it allows our emotions to do what they're meant to do, which is just inform us and let us, take stock from it and then let them move on. The problem is when we squash down, like something triggers us and we don't think it should trigger us, or we don't, we can't react and we don't know how to deal with it, and it overwhelms us, then we hold it in our body and it can make us long-term angry and long-term sad and cause health problems and all kinds of good stuff. So when something triggers us, it gives us that opportunity to feel these emotions and let them go. What I like to do is practice that every day of just feeling those emotions in the body and feeling it as a sensation, not as a story of what caused it. So you may feel it in your neck, and a lot of times when I'm doing this, I want to close my eyes and go to a quiet place. But sometimes you can kind of like just feel the energy in the moment when you're with that person if you need to. And sometimes you can't, and that's okay too. But like, if you can go off by yourself for a moment when you're feeling triggered and close your eyes, really tune in your body, like where am I feeling this emotion, this energy that feels bad, and let myself just be with it for a minute and let it be okay that it feels bad and it feels yucky. And you can notice, is it in your gut? Is it in your throat? Where is it? What does it feel like? And if you can just sit there and feel it, a funny thing happens, which is it shifts. It may not shift permanently. You may have to do this a lot of times, especially if it's a person or a situation that triggers you a lot. And it may not like totally go away, but you will feel like a slight shift, a slight upward change in the energy in your body or the vibration in your body. So if you can make a practice to do that a little bit every day when you're not actually feeling triggered, and then when you are feeling triggered, if you can go away by yourself and do that for a few minutes, I find that it really changes how we deal with emotions. The trick is letting go of the story. The trick is being aware of it in the moment and not beating yourself up. Like if you got triggered and you're all upset and then later you're like, I should have taken a moment to feel the energy and just like been curious about, why does this trigger me, and allow myself to feel that energy. Beating ourselves up for it never helps anything in the long term. But I do, I feel like, when my daughter told me I triggered her and I said, "You're welcome," she was like, "It's not a good kind of triggering." And I was like, I think all triggering, except for if you have you know, this deep emotional trauma. And in a way, even if you have deep emotional trauma that's being triggered by something, it's probably, I mean, it's things that are coming up and asking to be healed, right? Because people who have these deep trauma, the reason these things trigger them is because there's something there that still needs to be healed. That doesn't mean that they don't need, you know, maybe psychological help or other medical help getting that healed, or even spiritual help, or all kinds of conglomeration of help to heal it. But the trigger is just showing you that there's something that needs to be healed. Either that, or in the moment you're feeling anger, and that's okay too. Like most of us, if something deeply triggers us and it's like we get upset past of like a normal thing, then it's a trigger. And then, like, you know, anger is just that normal response of I don't like what is happening here. And they can both be processed through the same thing of just stopping and feeling the emotions. But usually normal anger, if there's not a trigger in an old story, an old wound that needs to be healed, it won't be something that is a trigger. It's just like you're mad in the moment and it's easy to process. A trigger sometimes takes repetition of doing this process of feeling it. But I would just encourage you to notice when you get triggered and who triggers you, and maybe you can actually silently thank that person for triggering you. Their behavior still might not be a good thing. And then again, it might just be like us and somebody's chewing and it bugs you. So yeah, that they are giving you a gift by triggering you and letting you know what needs to come up. And so just feel it, take a few moments, and yeah, play with that here in the month of March. I'm so excited that the sun has come up. Well, actually, I lied. I'm hoping that the sun is going to come up. It's still raining, it's still cold here, but knowing that it's March just makes me feel a lot better. I know that it has to shift and change here relatively soon. So that's my spiel for today. I've missed you guys, so I'm trying to get back into the live stream thing again. As I said, February just it's not my month. I think I'm just gonna plan next year to like be gone during February. I took a big vacation during January, and then like he came back in February. I just couldn't seem to cope with the outside world. I just kind of went into this deep, I want to call it like the Pisces coma, but Pisces doesn't come into season until like, what, it's the 19th or 20th. Tapping into the reservoir can few right moments that lead to regret. Yeah, Eric, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying, but it almost sounds, and you can tell me if I'm off, like if you feel like if you're tuning into like your anger and stuff, it could have you like act out in a way that you would regret. And I can understand how that is something that can happen to certain people. I think if you like tap into not the story, but just can just tune in and feel what you're feeling in a real quiet way and feel how it feels in your body, it tends to let the anger dissipate and give you the chance to feel it and respect that it's there without tapping into it. So, but definitely it does, like people who've had deep trauma are going to react differently than people who've just had normal life trauma. And it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of reading and research lately how trauma affects us all, and like there's just a certain trauma from going through life, and as a child and as an infant and as a child, I guess none of us, even when we had parents and people around us who had the best of intentions, got our needs met exactly the way we wanted to. And that's why we all have these wounds, and we're looking for really just presence from other people, and not presence, but presence as in them fully being there. And so this exercise is kind of an exercise of being fully there for yourself and just sitting with your own energy and feeling it. And when you do that, it shifts, just like when you do that for someone else, or when someone else does it for you, it's very soothing and healing. This is kind of like that step that you can do on your own. And it's also great to do, you know, just with a partner, of sitting there and being in each other's energy and like actually being fully present to either what they're saying or what they're communicating, just with their energy. So, but definitely it is, as I said at the beginning of the live stream, you may have missed, it is different for people who have deep trauma. But I think everybody who's triggered, whenever you're triggered, it's part of yourself that's reaching out, asking for healing. And so some of us can do that more or less on our own. And some of us are going to need more help and support. And help and support is always good. Yeah, Eric, it's the feeling of feeling it in the body is painful, but it's kind of a different pain. It's different than the emotional pain of the story that we tell. And when you can just like feel where it is in the body and feel what's happening on. I'm trying to remember, there's a book I read once about a man who had cancer, and even just instead of telling the story of like the pain in his body and stuff, when he just really got present to the pain, he's like, there's pain there, but then it would shift and become so much more tolerable. So it's a really can be quite a transformative thing. And you know, even if you just do it for 3 or 4 minutes a day on a daily basis, you get better at it. It's definitely a practice. And I have an audio. Let me see if I can find the link for the audio that is free, and you don't even have to sign up for anything, that walks you through this. Let's see, it's under freebies on my site. Is it under that? Okay, yeah. It's called the 5 Minute to Revamp Your Vibe Kit on my website, one of my websites. But it's basically just tuning into your vibration and your emotions in your body and feeling that feeling. And like, that's my favorite form of meditation, just tuning in and feeling what emotions and what is going on inside my body. Because for me, it's the fastest way to shift out of that. But definitely it's an accepting of what you're feeling in that moment while dropping the story of it. So let's see if I can add it in here. I will see if I can do that. Okay. Oops. Oh, hey, Janice, I just saw your thing. We're going to be working with money in March in the lab. And I'm going to be getting that up there very soon. And we will have for those of you who are in the premium members of Daily Alchemy, we'll be having a live next week, early in the week, whenever we're tuning into that new moon. I think it's like the 4th or the 5th, but we're going to be working with money manifesting. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful day. You're welcome, Eric. I hope that's helpful. And if you have any questions when you try to do it, you can always come back and post them on this page, and I'll see them and I'll answer them. But you kind of know when your energy shifts and you can move on, but it's definitely a practice. It gets easier the more that you do it. So, all right, have a wonderful day, guys, and I hope you're all only triggered in the very best ways today.